there is a very, very powerful exercise that you can do that can immediately help you see if you have some power or some room in that situation to start taking little steps to begin to feel better. Welcome to The Art of Speaking Up, a podcast that empowers professional women to rise. I'm your host, Jessica Guzik, and in this show, I take you undercover into the stories and lessons that I learned, sometimes the hard way, throughout my career. I also talk with working women, leaders, and coaches to show you that no matter what your struggle is, and no matter what your career goals are, you already have all the talent that you need to succeed. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. I am super excited to do a solo episode, just me and you, and I'm going to be talking about letting go of self-criticism and letting go of some of those negative things that we do inside of our heads internally that affect our external experience. These thoughts and these things that we say to ourselves affect how we behave. They affect what we do at work. They can affect how we perform at work. But because they're inside of us, we're actually in control of them a lot of the time. And today's episode is all about that. I love talking about mindset work. I love talking about leadership, and I am so excited to share this with you. If you are someone who is wanting to let go of being really hard on yourself and let go of those thoughts that tell you that you can't do it and that focus on where you're struggling, and you want to get more in touch with those thoughts that tell you that you can do it and that you are capable and that you're talented and that you're good at things and that you have infinite potential. If you're wanting to move more in that direction, then this episode is for you. I have been so excited to record this one. This idea just came to me out of pure inspiration when I was on a jog, and I've been super pumped ever since then to share it with you. So with that, I'm going to get into the content of today's episode, and you can just sit back and enjoy, and here we go. All right, so I wanted to open by asking you if you remember a game that I certainly remember from my childhood. It's called Hungry Hungry Hippos. And if you've ever played Hungry Hungry Hippos, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But in case you haven't played it, I'll give you a quick description. You can probably YouTube it and see the game. The visual is very cute and very funny. But essentially, it's a game where there's this square-shaped game board, and there are 4 different hippos, and each hippo has a little handle on it. And every time you press the handle, the hippo's mouth opens, and when you let go of the handle, his mouth closes. So each person, it's a 4-person game, each person has a hippo, and then you dump all these marbles into the middle of the board, and as soon as you dump the marbles onto the board, everybody presses their hippo handle, and their hippo chomps, and you're trying to get as many of those marbles into your hippo's mouth so that you can win the game. It's a really cute game. I love this visual, and this visual is actually going to be the center of today's episode. And so I want to use this game, Hungry Hungry Hippos, as a little bit of a way to visualize some of the experiences that we often have internally when we're struggling with self-confidence and we're struggling to feel powerful, and we're struggling to harness that confidence and that power to do difficult things and to get through difficult tasks. Because my belief when it comes to success in your professional life is it doesn't really matter if you're quote unquote not good at something. It doesn't matter if the thing you want is really hard. None of that stuff matters. What matters is how you encourage yourself through it and how much you're able to push yourself forward no matter what the situation looks like. Because when you begin to build those skills, then you essentially can do anything and you're not as scared of difficult situations. And so this is all about getting to that point. And so I want you to imagine that this Hungry Hungry Hippos board, instead of an actual game, Each hippo is a part of you, and each of those 4 hippos represents a persona that you have within you. It's kind of like an internal voice that talks to you and gives you messages about yourself and about your capabilities. So I know this might sound like a little bit of a strange concept, but I'll walk you through what mine might look like, and it might have some commonalities with your life experiences and your internal experiences, and it might help you grasp onto what I'm saying. So if I were to think about what my 4 hungry hippo personas are, I would say I'll start with the positive. I have 2 positive hippos and I have 2 negative hippos within me. I have one persona within me that I would call ambitious hippo. This is the part of me that wants to do big things. I have big dreams. I am hyper ambitious. I have huge goals for myself and my life, and I have been this way throughout my entire life. I was like this as a kid. I was like this throughout most of my life. Whenever I want something, I want a lot of it, and when I decide I want something, I go hard at it, and it's just how I'm wired, and I actually feel happy doing that. This is my ambitious hippo that wants to do a lot, and it often tells me things like, you can do this, Jessica. You've got this. You want something big, you can have it. You can have whatever you want. You can get through the most difficult thing. I have faith in you. Think about how much you want this and let that fuel you through the challenges. That's one of my internal voices. I would call that one ambitious hippo. I have another one, also on the positive side of the spectrum, that I would call happy, playful, joyful, silly hippo. This is the goofy side of me. It is the side of me that wants to be unconditionally present and laughing and finding fun and making jokes and being with my friends and just being so in the joy of a moment and so in the joy that you sometimes and hopefully often experience in life when you're just letting go of most of your thoughts and you're just being very, very present and enjoying whatever's there. You're being spontaneous. You're being playful. A lot of this hippo for me comes out when I'm hanging out with my friends and we're really just having a good time, sometimes goofing around, joking, laughing about ridiculous things that wouldn't make sense to anyone else. I have this persona inside me. And then I want to go over to the other side of the Hungry Hippos board and tell you a little bit about the negative, the not so positive personas that I have inside of me that I know many other people have as well. And I'll start with what I would call anxious hippo. Anxious hippo is very, very worried. Anxious hippo likes to think about what is the worst possible thing that can go wrong. What is the worst possible thing that could happen to me in this situation? An anxious hippo likes to imagine what that could look like and come up with ways to prevent it and to control it. Most of these ways are ineffective. They're not helpful. They just cause the anxiety to get higher. And anxious hippo really likes to say a lot of things to me like, what if? What if this bad thing happens? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And it's constantly going down that route of what's the worst possible thing? That is what I call my anxious hippo. Okay, then the last hippo, this is the worst hippo of them all. I think that's why I saved it for last, because I don't like talking about this hippo. But this is a dark hippo. This is self-hating hippo. This is the self-critical, mean, cruel, awful hippo that says, who do you think you are? You think you're going to do this thing. You think you're going to share this thing. You are a piece of, you are a piece of bleep. You should not be doing this. You are horrible. You suck. Step back and stay in your corner. A lot of us have this persona inside of us, and it's definitely one that I've experienced as well. And the reason that I'm using this analogy of the Hungry Hippos board and telling you about these 4 hippos that I have is because this visual can be extremely helpful for you if you are struggling to believe in yourself and you're struggling with conflicting voices inside of you. Here's how I think about this. I have these 4 personas inside me: ambitious, playful, anxious, self-hating, right? Those are the 4 hippos. And what I like to imagine is that at any given time, I might be having thoughts that are coming from one of these 4 hippos. So I imagine it like the Hungry Hippos board. So, for example, let's say I'm having a really, really good day and I'm feeling ambitious and I'm feeling driven and I'm getting things done and I'm being productive and things are going really, really well. The way that I imagine that is on the Hungry Hungry Hippos board, ambitious hippo is like chomping, chomp, 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 chomp. And the other hippos are just chilling. They're dormant. And ambitious hippo is chomping away, which means he's getting all the marbles, which means he's feeling fulfilled and he's chomping louder. So oftentimes you have a day where you feel really good. You're feeling driven. You start accomplishing things and then you feel even better, right? Because you're in this positive cycle of getting things done and reaching your goals, whatever your goals might be at that day and in that moment, and it's fueling more of those good feelings, more of those good thoughts. So it's very much like Hungry Hungry Hippos. That active chomping hippo is getting more marbles. Those marbles are food or fuel for the hippo, and you're having a good day and you're feeling good, and those are the thoughts that you're getting, and those thoughts are making you feel good, and things are going well, and you're getting good results, and it's a happy, ambitious hippo day. Excellent. Now, I'm sure you know what I might contrast this with. And that is a day where maybe anxious hippo is being really, really active, right? So maybe I'm having a day or you're having a day where all you can really think about are these worst case scenario, what if anxious thoughts, and that hippo is just chomp, 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 chomping away. And again, oftentimes, the more those thoughts come in, the more you start to think of things that could go wrong. Then you become very constrained. You become very worried. It affects your behavior. It affects how you show up. And as you show up in that fearful way, a lot of the times you will look for and receive confirmation sometimes that all of these thoughts coming from this anxious hippo are true. So when you go out into the world or out into your job with all of these anxious hippo thoughts of like, oh my gosh, this meeting is going to go poorly. I'm going to do this thing wrong. I don't know what I'm doing. That actually makes you feel constricted. It's actually very, very hard to do your best work when you're in that state of mind and you have those negative anxious hippo thoughts just pouring in. So what happens is it affects your behavior, and that anxious hippo sees some bad things that might be starting to happen or sees some potential bad results. Sometimes they're real, sometimes they're imagined, but it starts getting those marbles. It's chomping away with the anxious thoughts. It's eating the marbles. It's getting more fuel, and it's going. I don't know about you, but I have been on that cycle before with that hippo chomping away. It's the worst thing ever. And it is not at all conducive to happiness and fulfillment and success in one's career. Okay, now here's the thing. The reason that I gave you the example of a day when I'm feeling very ambitious, an ambitious hippo is just chomping away, or a day where I'm feeling very anxious, an anxious hippo is just chomping away, is to help you understand this idea that I've created in my mind of these hungry, hungry hippos. But actually, what I've noticed throughout my life, and you may experience this as well, is that oftentimes all of the hippos are chomping, right? They're all chomping. It's just that we might be more tuned into one hippo versus the other. And so oftentimes in the span of a day, you could go from feeling amazing to feeling horrible and anxious, right? We all have these parts of us inside us. We're very, very, very complex as human beings. And this is a little bit of what I talked about in season 2 during my episode about our weaknesses and how we have a lot of different parts to us. We're never all one thing. We're never all ambitious or all playful or all worried or whatever it might be. We're all of these different things kind of twirled up together. And a lot of growth in your career and mastery over yourself and a lot of your ability to really do difficult things and move yourself ahead and achieve the things you want to achieve rest on your ability not to avoid all of the bad parts of you and not to be ambitious hippo all the time and to never have anxious hippo or self-hating hippo or whatever yours are, to never have them chomping away. It's not about avoiding all the negative. It's about learning who the whole of you, the whole picture of you is, and figuring out how to find balance and acceptance in that picture. That is my firm belief on how we get stronger and how we evolve as humans. And the stronger you get and the more balanced you can become, the bigger things you can go for in your career because you can handle more, you can take more risks, you can be in more difficult situations, you can push yourself to do things that might feel scary. And so a lot of this is about knowing that all of those hippos are often chomping at the same time. And it is up to us to figure out what we can do as humans who have free will and who can decide where we want to place our focus and decide which hippo we want to be focused on, how we can take that and use it to our advantage and use it to help us feel the way that we want to feel in any given situation, even if it's difficult. And the way that I like to think about this, and the reason that I like to use the hungry, hungry hippos analogy is because I think it can be really important when we're struggling to feel the way that we want to feel, and we're feeling negative or we have anxious thoughts. I think it's really, really important to recognize that we are not those thoughts. All of those thoughts coexist within us, right? So you could have anxious hippo and carefree hippo. Are you anxious or are you carefree? They're opposites, right? So you're really neither. Those are just thoughts, ideas that your brain is generating and delivering to you, and they live outside of you. And the way that I like to think about this, and the reason I love the hungry, hungry hippos analogy for this, as odd as it might seem, is because I imagine that you are the person who holds the game board in your hands. So you have this in your hands and the hippos are chomping away and you're experiencing it and it's part of your inner world, but you hold the game board. And whenever you find yourself in a difficult situation, if you find yourself in a situation where you're feeling very uncomfortable or you're really, really struggling and you don't want to feel that way, you don't want to feel so uncomfortable, you don't want it to be so hard, there is a very, very powerful exercise that you can do that can immediately help you see if you have some power or some room in that situation to start taking little steps to begin to feel better. So what I want you to imagine is in any given situation, whatever those hippo personas are for you, usually they're all going at the same time. They're all part of you. They're all there. So why is it that sometimes when you're in a difficult situation, all you can focus on is how scary it is? All you can see is the negative thoughts. That's all that is coming to mind for you. And you're like, happy hippo and ambitious hippo are silent. They're nowhere to be found. I feel awful. If you were ever in that situation and you suspect that is the case, I want you to imagine yourself holding the hungry, hungry hippos board in your hands. And I want you to ask yourself one question. And this is a powerful, game-changing question. I want you to imagine yourself holding the board in your hand and all of the hippos are chomping. And I want you to ask yourself, am I holding this hungry, hungry hippos board horizontal to the ground so that the marbles are just sitting there? Or am I holding this board tilted? Have I tilted the hungry, hungry hippos board towards the negative hippos? And are the marbles rolling in that direction? And so my hopeful hippo or my ambitious hippo or my optimistic hippo, it's chomping. It's there. It's a part of me. It's inside of me. It's there to help me. But the board is tilted, so it's not getting any fuel. It's not getting any nourishment. It's not getting any sustenance. And all of the marbles are tilted towards the negative hippos, and they're getting everything. And so it can feel like those positive parts of you are no longer within you, but they're always there. And I really strongly believe that we all have them inside of us, whatever yours may look like. I believe that whatever negative hippo you have is balanced by another one on the other side of the board. And this is part of what I believe it means to be human. And I have a very optimistic view of things and of us and of the world. And that is what I believe. And so when you're in a difficult situation, the first thing that I want you to do before you try to make it better, before you try to solve it, you don't always have to go straight to the solution. The first thing to do is to try to get perspective. And the way that you get perspective is to say, if I'm holding the hungry, hungry hippo board in my hand, is it straight? And am I allowing all of the hippos equal access to fuel and to marbles? Or has the board become tilted? Has the board become tilted? And this is why things seem so difficult. And this is why things feel so dark right now. And this is why I'm struggling to get through this situation, even though I know I have parts of myself and I know I have pieces within me that are able to do this. I'm certain that that's there. And as soon as you ask yourself this question, it gives you the option to see that perhaps your perspective and your decision of how to hold this board is influencing the experience that you are having. That is the first thing. And I guarantee you, if you're struggling, I guarantee if you ask yourself this question, if you remember to ask it in the moment, because it can be really hard to remember, but if you remember in the moment of struggle, hungry, hungry hippos, is the board straight? Almost always, you might find that the board is tilted towards those negative, difficult hippos. And this is a very, very helpful thing for you to realize, because what this does is it says what I'm experiencing now, this struggle isn't the only way that this can go. This is just the way it goes when the board is tilted. And you, as a human being, get to decide, do I want to level the board? And do I want to think about whether I can give those other hippos, those positive hippos, those ones that want to help me and encourage me and push me along, to give them an equal chance of accessing fuel and getting marbles? And can I find a way to tilt the board? And if I can tilt the board and get some of the marbles going in their direction, what kind of thoughts or ideas or inspiration might those hippos start to give me if they are able to access some of the marbles? And once you have gotten away from the negative tilt of the board towards neutral, and you're able to see the situation in a more balanced way, and when you're able to see this, you will know, because you will feel differently. You will feel a sense of relief. The world will look slightly different, and you'll be like, oh, it's not that bad. It's a very nice feeling, very nice feeling. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes it's enough to just get the board straight. But the most beautiful thing and the wonderful thing about this, and the most incredible thing about being human, is that you can also make a decision in those really hard moments where you're really pushing yourself, challenging yourself to do something big, do something scary, like what I talked about in the season 2 finale. You're challenging yourself to get on that next big stage, whatever that means for you, whether it's a job interview or it's just a day at work and you want to show up differently and you want to take more initiative and you want to take things into your own hands. Whatever situation you're in, if it's hard and it's difficult, not only can you ask yourself if you can straighten out the board, but over time, you can begin to learn to tilt the board in the positive direction. And you can begin to focus on those parts of you within you that push you along, that give you positive feelings, that give you fuel, that give you creativity, that give you all of the tools that you need to get through these difficult and challenging situations. And this is an incredibly powerful thing for you to do, because so much of what determines our success and what determines what we're able and willing to undertake in our professional lives is our ability to believe in ourselves and to believe that we can do hard things. And it's really hard to believe in yourself, and it's so hard to do those hard things if that board is tilted towards those negative hippos. And so over time, you want to try to start to balance that out, and you want to then try to start to tilt it towards the positive and learn about your positive hippos. What do they sound like? What is their persona? What are their labels? And what kind of things do they say to you? And really try to hear those parts of you and hear those voices, because as much as I want to help you or anyone wants to help you, the most powerful help is going to come from inside of you. That's going to have 1,000,000,000x more power than anything that I or anyone else could ever tell you. And so it's important to get to know those parts of yourself. And as you get to know them, to get some practice tilting that board. And often getting practice tilting that board towards the positive direction means putting yourself in difficult situations, putting yourself in scary situations, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations so you can begin to familiarize yourself with what it feels like to move the angle of that board. This is a very internal, intuitive process. It's not like a step-by-step, like do step 1 and step 2 and step 3, cultivating inner strength and inner resilience. In my experience and the way that I've lived it is about being in these situations and practicing drawing on that thing that you know is within you. And in this case, that thing is those 2 positive hippos on the other side of the Hungry, Hungry Hippos board. And the most incredible thing is that when you begin to do this and you begin to get better at tilting your own board in the direction that you want it to go in, you are cultivating the most important leadership skill almost of any out there. Because as you learn to motivate yourself and encourage yourself, which by the way, when you do that, that helps you become a better problem solver, you become more creative, you're more able to find alternative ways of doing things. Those are all things that are conducive to high performance in a workplace and conducive to your success in your professional life. But as you learn to tilt your board, you will also begin to understand how you might be able to do that for the people around you. So of course you have your hungry, hungry hippos. I have my hungry, hungry hippos. And one day, if you're leading a team, if you're working with a big group of people, if you're stepping into something bigger and the success of what you're working on and the success of your company or whatever it might be depends on people around you, you will realize that it is up to you to help start to tilt their boards too when they are struggling. And that is a core pillar of leadership. So if you can learn to do this within yourself, you will begin to build a skill that will make you a very powerful leader of other people, because sometimes we need someone to help us tilt our boards in the positive direction, right? Sometimes we don't always do all of this stuff on our own. The strength is coming from us. The intent is coming from us. The will and the decision comes from us. But sometimes we need that person to tap us on the shoulder and say, hey, is your board tilted? And that is what it means to be a good leader, is to be able to take a group of people and recognize when things are starting to tilt in the wrong direction and know what to bring to the table to get things back to neutral and then tilted in a positive direction. And that is why I love talking about leadership and I love talking about mindset, because in the end of the day, it all leads back to positivity and it all leads back to something that is hopeful and optimistic and pure. And that fills me with joy. And I love it so much. And I hope that you do too. And so that is my push for you today. And I want to give you one simple, clear takeaway, because I know there was a lot of hippo talk and a lot of abstract, I guess, more conceptual advice in this episode. So I want to give you a nugget, a tangible nugget. This is going to be hard to do. It's going to be hard to remember, but I just want you to go about your day at work. And I want you to kind of be on alert and be noticing for the next moment where you start to struggle, where something uncomfortable comes up, where you start to feel not good. And as you have each of those moments, all I want you to remember is hungry, hungry hippos. Just every time you have those moments, I want you to train yourself to think about the hungry, hungry hippos board and see what direction it's tilted. You don't even have to solve it. You don't even have to try to tilt the board if that doesn't feel right in the moment. It's just about bringing that awareness to you and realizing that when you feel bad, there's more that you can do to try to understand and improve the situation for yourself. And so that is my ask to you, is to try to remember to bring that in. And please, I would love to hear from you. Let me know if you do this. Let me know if this helps you. I can tell you that this has helped me so much in life, and it's helped me feel so much better and so much more optimistic about things, because who doesn't want to have something positive inside of them fighting for them whenever they need it? You know, and it's not to say that we should never experience bad things, and we don't want to just skate across our bad feelings. We want to actually experience them. That's very important. We don't want to deny something that we're experiencing. But when we have that balance, there are going to be times when we can really draw on it in a healthy way to help us through these difficult things. So let me know if this helped you. Let me know if this made sense to you, because the inner workings of my brain are a little bit weird, but I would love to hear what you thought. So please feel free to send me a message on Instagram. My handle is the name of the show, The Art of Speaking Up. And I'm going to be closing this episode with a quick bit of listener love for you. And my last bit of listener love is all about your hungry, hungry hippos. And I just want to ask you to take some time to really get to know that one hippo that is the one that gives you what you need when you're struggling and when you're not feeling good. That is the most important thing. That is strengthening your relationship with yourself. And when you start to really get to know that voice and to get to know that part of you, what it sounds like, what it says, this can be really hard, by the way, because a lot of us, if you're anything like me, you've been paying attention to those negative hippos for a lot of time, and it can be really uncomfortable to go into that space of being on your own side and being like, okay, I am good enough. I can do this. This is possible. But I really want you to spend some time getting to know that and even try to figure out what your different hippos are. And once you get to the positive ones, pick one that feels really strong within you and actually get to know it. Get to know what it says. Get to know what it believes. Get to know what it tells you, because that is going to provide you with just a like a flood of help and support and information. We always want our solutions to come from outside of us. And I do too. We all do. It's a little bit of, I think, the quick fix mentality that we're all looking for, but most of what we need and the strongest source of value is inside of us. So that is my push to you. And it's something that's been really helpful for me in my life. It's been challenging. It's not always easy, but I think it's really important for all of us to do. And I know that you have something inside you that is very, very powerful and very, very supportive. It's there. It might be hard to find, but I'm certain it's there. So I would encourage you to spend some time trying to find it. And that brings today's solo episode to a close. This was so much fun for me to record. I hope it was fun for you to listen to. And thank you again for tuning into the show. Thank you so much to those of you who have left reviews. If you have not yet left a review for the show, please jump into iTunes and tap the stars. You can write the review, but if you want it to be a 5-second exercise, you don't even have to write anything. You can just rate the show. I do almost everything for this show completely on my own while working a full-time job, and I love it. I love it so much. But a lot of shows out there have production teams and have a lot of resources, and this show has been doing really well. It's been breaking into the charts, and it's kind of getting to where some of those more professionally created shows are, and it's because of your help and your support. And so if you're ever asking yourself, how can I support the show and how can I give back, that is one of the best ways to do it, is just to leave a review. So thank you so much if you already have. I get so excited when I see them. If you've been listening for a while, you know that. And as always, please reach out to me on Instagram. My handle is The Art of Speaking Up. I post drawings on Instagram. I post reflections on what I'm experiencing. Sometimes my drawings are a mirror into what's happening in my life. So that's where the inspiration comes from. I have a lot of material to draw on for this show because I live it every day. And thank you for listening. Thank you to all of you. You are all the best. Every time I hear from you, my heart leaps. So thank you. And I'll catch you next week. Have an amazing day. Bye.